This is the Take Back the Future Masterclass. It is brought to us by the Leadership for Conservationists in Africa. They have partnered with GREESET to bring this class to you, which is the Conservation for Non-Conservation. GREESET was established in 2020 and is the leading organization that introduces and implements sustainability within the film industry. So we are scientists, and sustainability is mostly relating to climate change. And who here has heard or read somewhere about climate change? Yeah, quite a few people, about the climate emergency, the melting ice caps and all that. I'm sure I can see that you all have read about that, and that is what we are about. Who here knows who Taylor Swift is? Okay, I would be surprised if you didn't. So I'm not sure if you guys heard, but Taylor Swift recently hosted a concert in Scotland. And what happened was she had a full stage with 60,000 people jumping up and down at her concert. And what happened is, because of the impact of the jumping up and down, there was an impact which was recorded on the Richter scale. She caused a mini earthquake. Literally, you can search this after this, and that is the impact that like 60,000 fans can have. Can I please have some volunteers? You, please. I just want to do a little experiment, and for us to break the ice a bit. Do we have a third volunteer, please? Yeah. Please, thank you. Okay, so let's take this as this is our Earth. I think you will start. Can you step on that in the middle of the rug? Okay. I will count to 3, and I need you to jump up and down 3 times. So in 3, 2, 1, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That that was excessive. Okay, let's have you go there. And let's have you go there. In 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Can we feel the impact of that? So when there was one person jumping, it was not as impactful. But if we have 3 people jumping, then it's impactful. Imagine now a heavy me with these 3 guys. Let's, in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Thank you so much, guys. But the moral of the story is that we really need to step very softly on our Earth, guys. We really need to. In everything we do, we really need to step softly. And that is what we call sustainability. Sustainability is the ability for us, this current generation, to exist, to develop without impacting future generations, without impacting, like we would like our children and our grandchildren to live in a community, in a world that looks like this. And that is what we are doing within the film industry. I'll call on Zeus, who is going to be talking more on climate change and why we do what we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zizi. So the first thing that we're going to have to look at, because there's so many of us on this planet, and then there's only one planet that we are populating. So looking at the population that we had in 1950, when most of your grandparents were born, maybe some of your parents. So we only had 2.5 billion people. And then in 1970, when most of your parents were born, we were sitting at 3.7 billion people. And 5.3 in 2000, when almost all of you were born. But 24 years later, we are sitting at 8.1 billion. So that is a huge, that is almost a double of the population that we had in 2000. So what has happened is that we have crossed 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. So when we cross these boundaries, these are the boundaries that makes life possible on Earth. So looking at this, so the 2 boundaries, which is climate change and biosphere, which is, for simpler terms, is biodiversity loss, are being recognized as the core boundaries of the entire system. So what they do is whatever happens, it then affects the climate change. As Zizi has mentioned, that the climate change is sitting at the top. For example, if you can make an example of water use management. So in Cape Town, like 2017, between 2017 and 2018, we almost hit what they call day zero. That is because of the change in how we use the fresh water, and then how we have overexploited the natural resource that is called fresh water. And then the second example that you can look at is in 2019, what happened in Brazil in the Amazon rainforest. So the Amazon rainforest is very important, like it acts as a sponge. It absorbs between 150 to 200 billion tons of carbon. So what happened there is, because of agriculture and massive agriculture, we, as the population grows, so does the demand for food and everything. So the massive agriculture then happens that they clear the forest, and then which leads to the release of carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. And then in that process of clearing forests and starting agriculture, industrial agriculture, then you need fertilizers. So fertilizers are used for massive food production. So when they use fertilizers, those fertilizers, they get washed into the system, into the river streams, into the ocean, and then causing another chemical imbalance. So all of that then results to what we call ocean acidification. So the ocean can only absorb so much carbon. But now if there's too much carbon coming to the ocean, then the oceans become acidified, and then it leads to biodiversity loss into the ocean. So now the question is, what are we doing about it? What have we been doing about it? I'm sure some of you who have done like history and know like what we call the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution happened in the 1800s. So a man called Thomas Chamberlain came and developed an idea saying that carbon can lead to climate change. So what then we have done throughout the years, like with research and everything, is because of like the greenhouse gases that come from our human activities, which is the crux and the key component of this entire masterclass, is that we have to look after our own activities, because we're releasing so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which then causes the imbalance. So fast forward in 2015, the United Nations adopted what we call the 2030 United Nations Development Goals. So there's 17 of them. The Paris Agreement was adopted by 197 countries, with South Africa one of them. The interesting fact, last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed into law what we call the climate change bill. So it was signed into law. So it's something that now, like what we've been saying, we've been doing in the film industry as GREESET and other role players, it's something that is going to be part of the law, which is very exciting for us. So the next step now is, now that the man of the land, the president and the other leaders have taken that initiative into ensuring that they put these treaties into place, what are we doing now as individuals? So the baton is on our hands now to ensure that we take whatever measures that we have. Either you go as an AD, you go in every department, which this is going to expand on, to be able to take that matter and then take it into your own hands. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much to Zeus about that. When I got into the film industry, I was an environmental scientist graduate from the University of the Western Cape. I never thought in a million years that I would be working within the film industry. And what I'm going to be talking about is why the film industry, why implement sustainability within the film industry. And the main reason for that is that for a small show, depending on the size of the show, we produce 391 metric tons of carbon emissions. And for a big show like Barbie, we produce like 3,370 metric tons of carbon for a big show like that. And that is equivalent to a carbon emissions that are produced by 656 homes in America. It is equivalent to a round trip from Cape Town to New York 1,497 times. So those are impacts that cannot be ignored. As GREESET, we make sure that we recycle as much as we can. We divert from landfill as much as we can. Next slide, please. So how we implement sustainability on a film set is based on 6 pillars. So those pillars include creating awareness, encouraging a circular economy on set, doing waste management, also encouraging greener habits on set, as well as doing, that's the most important thing, having fuel and energy savings on set, as well as social impact. Those are divided into 5 sustainability days of the week. We have circular Mondays. Circular Mondays ensure that the life of the materials that are within the film industry last longer. So we encourage refurbishing, repurposing the sets, recycling the sets, donating, just to expand the life of the materials that we're using on set. The second one is Chicken Tuesdays. A funny story about Chicken Tuesdays, the international standard for meatless is Meatless Mondays. So we tried that in a film set in South Africa, and it did not go well. The reason for this is because the crew was out the weekend having fun, and the last thing they want to eat on a Monday morning is veggies. Like they couldn't. We ended up with a lot of food waste, and then we thought, okay, because farming chicken compared to farming beef takes a lot of space, needs a lot of water. So it's more sustainable to use white meat instead of red meat. So we switched it up a bit because we would rather have that than having food waste on set. So we switched it to Chicken Tuesdays, and then we have Wasteless Wednesdays, which is just about waste, encouraging crew to recycle, to repurpose, and we have our green PAs on set. Alungile is one here in the audience. He is responsible for the waste management, sorting out the waste, because in order to recycle, you need to sort out the waste so that you can send it to different depots. And we have these guys who are doing amazing, and our waste diversion rate is 70% on all our shows. And on Thursdays, we have recognition, a day where we recognize crew that is being sustainable. Because sustainability is a new thing within the film industry, we encourage crew who are being sustainable so that we can get other people to join in. And a funny story that happened when I was on a show on season 1 of Project Panda, I literally was encouraging everyone to be more sustainable. And this guy comes to me, it was at the height of COVID, so we had to test like 3 times a week. And when we're testing, we get these papers where you have to sign that you have tested. And this guy comes to me and says, how about we scrap that system where we sign the paper, because that's a lot of paper 3 times a week, and have a system with the COVID department where they just have tablets, and then they can just punch it in on the tablet, and then you've tested. And I'm like, yeah, great, that's a great idea, we'll implement that. And then he says, I deserve to be a green panda, right? And we're like, yeah, that's like a good enough cause. And we send out posters, so I send out the poster, and I'm like, hey, congratulate the green panda, because we hype it up, and this one is the green panda. The whole department comes to me and says, this guy is a scammer. We were talking about this in the office, and he like quickly ran to you to say, hey, how about we do this? Like as if it's his own idea. I had to then send out another poster correcting and saying, hey guys, so this is the guy. So that just shows that we've gotten so much positive feedback from our crew. And just on Fridays, we have Plug Out Fridays. So we just encourage crew to be more sustainable in their departments and turn off whatever is not in use, like just save power as much as possible, because what is happening is that we get our power by burning coal or having diesel, which is a non-renewable, So to save that, we save fuel and we save electricity. Okay. GREESET has facilitated a lot of donations because we are big on social impact, and these are some of the organizations that we've donated to. I'm just going to have a show of hands. We have the production department, the unit and transport department, and the locations department. Who in here is interested in joining one of those departments? Okay, quite a few people. And also what I've learned about the film industry is because you are a freelancer, you can be a camera guy who ends up being a unit guy because you need the bag. So it's best we listen. So this is how you can be more sustainable in your department. So if you are in the production department, what you can do is to use green suppliers, suppliers that are more sustainable. Encourage the use of green suppliers. I mean, the production department is the most important department because they must set the tone for crew to be more sustainable, and that's why we need them. So if you are in the locations department, what you can do to be more sustainable is to make sure that you take care of the environment. The goal of our shows is that we want to leave the environment that we're shooting at as it was before we got there, or in an even better situation. So if you are in the unit department, they are responsible if we want to save fuel, and we've been seeing a great impact that is coming from them. So they've been using hybrid vehicles. So on season 2 of One Piece, which I'm working on, we have 11 hybrid vehicles for the above the line crew. We have just implemented a hybrid vehicle that is solar powered. I mean, it helps if you are going to be in the unit department to familiarize yourself with these things, because you are now not going to be operating generators anymore, but you're going to be operating these new technologies. Who here is interested in the art department? So the best thing you can do to be more sustainable if you are in the art department is to design sets with the end in mind. So they're mostly responsible for the set designing and all that. So a cool thing that they do is that they repurpose a set. So a set that was used for something else is reused for another scene, another place, and this is because they design these sets so that they can be maximum. We're trying to, the end goal, guys, when working with departments is to minimize carbon emissions and to make sure that we use the materials that are in place as much as we can. And so, yes, you can repurpose sets. So if you are, who's interested in the set deck department, set dressing? Yeah. So if you're interested in the set dressing department, you use low VOC paints. You can donate all the materials that are not in use after the show, and you can repurpose. And it is important, if you are in the set dressing department, to look at shows that were happening around you and buy set dressing articles from them, because it just helps to move them to another show instead of fabricating from scratch, starting from scratch, and it saves money for the production as well. If you are in the wardrobe department, you don't use harmful materials for dyeing and aging your clothing items. Recycle fabric offcuts. And if you are in the construction department, they produce the most waste. So what makes our waste diversions a little higher is because we also count in waste recycled from construction. So we recycle timber, we recycle polyurethane, we recycle all those things from this department. So the best thing you can do is to work with the sustainability department on set and find out what you can do to be more sustainable, where you can send items, where you can send this, where you can send that. The next is the camera, sound, and lighting. Who's interested in that? Okay, we have a few that are interested in that. So if you are in these departments, the best thing you can do, because they're not that impactful, but what they use is a lot of tech stuff. So we recycle e-waste, so your cables, your batteries, everything, you recycle that. And also it helps to have rechargeable items. So rather than having like one battery that you're going to throw away, rather have rechargeable devices so that you can use them for longer, and that is a bit more sustainable. And then we have the hair and makeup. Hair and makeup, what you can do to be more sustainable is you can use cruelty-free products, have recyclable containers. And for the catering department, we encourage them to have packaging that is recyclable, that is biodegradable, or we can even have plates, because you can just wash plates and reuse them. Okay, and the SFX department, who here is interested in the SFX department? No one. Okay. That's one of the most interesting ones. But we did say that you are in the full industry, so you can be in any department. So the SFX department is responsible for your dust effects, your snow effects. They do bloods sometimes. So what you can do to be more sustainable is for your dust effects and you can use water-based dust. You can use for your rain. You can measure where you want to have it so that you don't wet the whole place and waste water. And also, you can use biodegradable snow instead of using the snow effects that were used like 10 years ago. There's a lot you can do in your departments, and it just takes one person to do to like gear the crew, get the crew to be on it. So things you can do to be more sustainable just in general, you reuse and recycle. You implement a strict no idling policy on set. You leave only footprints and treat locations. You use clean energy when possible. We know that clean energy in South Africa is not very very readily available. But whenever there's clean energy, there's an opportunity to do so. We encourage you to do so. Use the 3 bins on sets. So we have a lot of 3 bins on sets: the red, blue, and green. Donate whatever your department is not using. Save your water. Implement sustainability initiatives at home. So we're hoping that you take this, whatever we teach within the film industry, you take it to your homes and implement it at home, because that's how we're going to make a positive impact. To switch off whatever is not in use, and to also use less plastic, less paper and plastic. So now the question is, knowing what you know now, and I need people who have been on productions before. So knowing what you know now, in that department that you were in, what would you have done differently? That's the question. What would you have done differently? So you can just introduce yourself and tell us which department you've worked on, and just let us know what would you have done differently in your department.
Good day, everybody. My name is Mawani Tekeni. I've been in the film industry now for almost 12 or 14 years. I have done a couple of shows. I can't even mention one. I was very happy when the GREESET came through on Raised by Wolves, and then I was I was there as well. It's been good thing, because previously whatever we used, it always been ended up in the wrong space. I've worked on a lot of shows where we went to set and then we never left the set the same. And then also you spoke something about constructions where the set get discarded after. At one point they had a thing where the crew members were allowed to come and take what they can use for their house. For instance, if you've got a shack that need to be rebuilt, then they used to allow people to come in and collect whatever they wanted to use. I also feel like we also, through GREESET, guys, I think we also need to try to implement a system where you're also able to collect screws, because there's a lot of gold screws that we used and then ended up being everywhere on a set that we shot. It doesn't matter how much time we spend cleaning on that, but there's always ended up being a lot of screws in that. For me, knowing to what I know now, it has changed a lot. I've been growing my own food and stuff like that, which is also kind of in line with what the GREESET were trying to do. But also, to get back to your question, all I can say is kudos to what you guys are doing. And then I also wish that you can expand, not only in the film industry, because there are a lot of industries outside that they kind of on the same platform as we are in terms of having a lot of waste as well. So for me, I would say, whatever you're doing, keep it up. And then also, it's good for us that there's mostly young people here, which is going to be the future of whatever things we're doing. So all I can say is also try to take this thing to schools as well, so everyone can be aware. Because if he knows and she knows, that automatically she takes that thing to home. But imagine if like 5 people in one street knew about the whole thing, we could change a lot of stuff. Thank you so much.
knowing what I know now, I can't promise I would have done different because we were all on deadlines and that. But I definitely would have spent more time thrift shopping for what we use to decorate our sets, especially in first year. Sustainability wasn't something we even thought about at that time, and we made a decent go at it for my final year project, but it's still hard when you don't know necessarily where everything needs to head off. One of my biggest changes I would have made is our batteries for sound and switching those to rechargeables.
Thank you so much, guys. Your input is really, really valued. So, next up, I'm going to give the mic to the lovely Margot from Green Eyes. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. How are you guys today? Yeah. So I'm Margot. I am a sustainable filmmaker, content creator, and storyteller. So I've been on my sustainable film journey since 2018, and ever since then, I just fell in love with climate storytelling, and I think GREESET is just amazing. Now, I do work as a freelancer for Green Eyes, a sustainable consultancy company in the UK and Hungary. And I would like to share with you what green and climate storytelling is all about. Now, like Zeus and Zizi said, climate change is a really bad, hectic thing we face today. And the film industry can do loads of things to combat this behind the scenes and in front of the camera. Now, we can see this is an important step these days because if you just look at COP26 happening in 2021, 12 major broadcasting companies in the UK signed a pledge to create more climate content within their film narratives. And then fast forward to 2 years later, last year, COP28, where they continued the discussion and panels on how important it is to create more initiatives relating to climate storytelling. Now, the APCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, I think that's right, stated that climate storytelling have the power to change people's minds and change behaviors to be more environmentally friendly, to be more conscious. Now, this is why I want to talk about this. Like you said, that you guys are all young, right? And you are the future change makers. You are the future key decision makers. So if you think about 60% of Africans' population is under the age of 25, you literally have the power to change the narrative, right? So before I talk about what climate change is within storytelling, who here has seen anything that you think can have a sustainable storyline or climate context?
Interestingly enough, it is the British series Doctor Who. Their recent expansion into more dimensional things, and they've actually done it with the most recent series, is they've gone into what can happen. But also there's a lot of revolve around the idea. I think Peripheral was one of them that the film isn't about climate change, but you see the consequence of it. And as my script writing lecturer always said, show, don't tell. I think that is one of the ways we can best implement it. If you're writing for specific time periods, to show what's happening or what we've lost.
Thank you. Exactly. So, initiatives like the Hollywood Climate Summit, We Are Albert, Good Energy Stories that created the climate reality check to see how many films are actually talking about climate change. You see these initiatives popping up, and all the more. So, this is really a big call to action. Next slide, please. So, climate storytelling. You can have two parts of climate storytelling. First, the art department. So, this reminds me of a story that my mom told me when I was doing my master's. So, I did my master's specifically in sustainability and production design. And she told me, well, you know, Margot, I can already see the influence film has, because back in the day when I went to go watch Top Gun, everyone went out to buy Ray-Bans because Tom Cruise wore Ray-Bans in the film. And who doesn't want to be as cool as Tom Cruise? So imagine if we get someone like Viola Davis, Zendaya, oh my gosh, I love Zendaya, just having a reusable tote bag for shopping, or like go to Starbucks with a reusable cup. Like, what change could we make? If we see this more on screen, we normalize it, and people will then start thinking differently and acting differently. So back to production design, you can implement recycling bins. You can have reusable tote bags and mugs. You can have characters showing best practices through saving water by turning off taps. You can have them showing energy efficiency by turning off lights. So there's so many different visual aids that you can implement within your film. Like, it doesn't even matter what type of genre it is or what it is about. If you add these subtle details within your background, your set dressing, or within your props, you can add awareness surrounding climate change and sustainability, and hopefully inspire audiences to think differently and act differently. So, the second part of climate storytelling is your entire narrative. This is easy if you are doing a documentary. For instance, Breaking Boundaries on Netflix shows us the importance of acting towards climate change and decreasing our harmful humanly acts. So Zeus did talk about the planetary boundaries, and in that documentary, they explain how we contribute to decreasing these planetary boundaries, right? So it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'll just make a documentary. However, if you want to learn about climate change, you'll just watch a documentary, right? But how do you tell this story to people that don't want to know about climate change, that don't care, right? So then you'll think, oh, how can I make a fantasy that hints on climate change without pushing it down their throats? That's the best way to do it. So films like WALL-E, that tells us about overconsumption, Lion King, that tells us about harmful human acts lead to biodiversity loss, water loss, and just the depletion of nature and environmental health. And then you have films like Avatar and Dune, which I really love, telling the story about how beautiful and rich our Earth is and how humans can stand together to combat the environmental issues and crises that we have today. Another example is 2040. So I've just watched this recently, and oh my gosh, I think everyone needs to watch this because this documentary was so good. He says in the film that we have the power, the knowledge, and the tools to combat climate change. We just need to go out there and actually do it. So I'm asking you now, everyone here, to actually go out there and tell your stories and actually do it. If you look the second picture, where you have a chips packet cut up and pasted on a stick. If you blow on it, it spins. That inspired a wind turbine. So the simplest idea can lead to something greater. Even if you think something's stupid, it's not. It's going to change the world. So I want to tell everyone here, go out, tell your stories, and inspire people, because you all have the power to do so. The future is literally in your hands. Like I said, 60% of Africans' population is under the age of 25. So please go out there, tell your African culture stories, tell your story, and just have fun while doing it. And then also, very important, think of how you're doing it, but also think of what you can do in inspiring others. So, as I said when I started, this is a big passion of mine, so I hope this becomes a great passion of yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot. So the main aim, my vision when I was putting this together, was to hopefully inspire you guys to write something, create something relating to environmental sustainability, be the voices that are going to change the future of this earth, right? And if you are not a writer, you are in the film industry, you can then be able to participate in your department to make the change that needs to happen.